we've seen actions by principally Apple, but other U.S. companies to try and move their supply chains out of China, or at least minimize their footprint there. How important is that right now?
I think it's absolutely critical for a company because you can't rely on China to be a reliable source of supply. You can't rely on the factory being able to produce. And even if the factory produces, the question is, can you get your product to port, which has become increasingly a major issue, and then onto a ship? So I'm not saying that companies won't be able to do it, but they cannot rely on that, which means they do need at least alternate sources of supply, because China is now, I think, not a good place to manufacture. I mean, the political risk is just enormous. And a couple other things. We got to remember that this is not just COVID protest. We have Xi Jinping reasserting totalitarian control over China generally. Mm-hmm. He believes in a state economy, which means he is undermining foreign and domestic Chinese private entrepreneurs. And in addition, he's also just trying to close China off. You know, periodically, Chinese rulers have done this when they felt that the pressures from the outside are too much for their system. So Xi Jinping has been doing that. And there's been a fair amount of xenophobia, which is really disturbing. So you put all that together, it makes China a very difficult place to manufacture, and certainly not a reliable platform anymore.
Given the importance of exports and the external market to China, it would seem counterintuitive that President Xi would be trying to cut off the country right now. What's the logic, given that the economic factors are certainly present in these protests as well?
I don't think that economic growth has ever really been a priority for Xi Jinping. The most important thing has been Communist Party control and orthodoxy. So I think that he has sort of felt a little bit arrogant. Remember, he is very much felt from the very beginning that the United States and the West in general is in terminal decline, and that China will rule the world. And if you come at the policy with that viewpoint, it means that you do press things and you do things which are not necessarily good for economic growth. So it's a very different mindset that Xi Jinping has. And it's very different from his immediate predecessors. It's certainly very different from Deng Xiaoping. Xi Jinping reveres Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong, with his power, that after he consolidated power, embarked on these impossible campaigns, the Great Leap Forward, Cultural Revolution. And in those campaigns, Communist Party control was the most important thing. So you start to look at this as a very different China than the one that we knew, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago.